Welcome to Your Career Story Podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of the Your Career Story podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you to everyone who has been reaching out and talking about how much they loved the very first episode of the podcast and how it's been helpful for them and how they're excited for more of them. So if that is you, I would love, because it really helps if you could go over to iTunes and leave us a review. We're really interested in learning a little bit more about what content resonates with you. So if something resonated with you, direct message me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or just write something in the reviews on iTunes. Again, it really helps us get the word out there about this podcast that could potentially be valuable for other people. Now, today's episode is all about resumes. So this is the question I get most often by clients, by prospects, by people on LinkedIn. What do I do with resumes? Resumes are incredibly stressful. It feels like we have no idea actually what to write. When we actually sit down to write it, we go blank, right? Most of us, when we're thinking about writing our resume. So my job today is really to equip you fully to be able to write a resume by giving you 3 simple things that your resume must have to land you a dream job. Because here's the deal. Every single person will have a different opinion about what a resume should look like. Whether you talk to somebody who's a mentor, whether you talk to your friend, whether you talk to your mom, whether you talk to your spouse, someone is going to have a different opinion about how a resume should be written and what it should look like. Now, here is what I've learned after working with about 800 people, talking to other career coach professionals, other HR professionals. There are 3 things that I have learned over the course of the couple years of doing this, of what everybody can agree upon as being the 3 central things that will make your resume be good no matter who looks at it. Here's the other thing to remember whenever you are redoing your resume. I think you should redo your resume and then also give it to somebody else to check over. But be careful how many people you have look at your resume, because if you give someone the option to edit something, they will edit it. And that will make it very confusing for you. So oftentimes, I just wanted to get that out of the way because I feel a lot of people get frustrated when writing resumes and then having other people look at it because everybody has a different opinion. And we see that even in the professional side of this work. So today's episode, again, is 3 things your resume must have to land you your dream job. Now, can we get an amen that resumes are incredibly frustrating? I know that when I would sit down to write it, I would just think to myself, wouldn't it be nice if I could just go into an interview and somebody would say, why should we hire you? And I just said, well, you have a job opening. There's an awesome comic that was drawn by a friend of mine, Nathan Pyle. I'm going to put it in the show notes because I think it just perfectly depicts how we often feel about the job search. We're like, can you just give me the job because you have a job opening and I know I can do it? It is not that simple. Unfortunately, today we are faced with the internet. We're faced with networking. We're faced with all these different aspects and components to the job search process that makes it really muddled. So I want to simplify that today for you. So first things first, before we even hop into what those 3 main ideas are of what will help you land your dream job as it relates to your resume, we need to talk about the real purpose of a resume. So I think a lot of people have different opinions or thought processes around what a resume's real purpose is. And so when we think about when we're going to change jobs, that's the first thing we go, we need to fix our resumes. We need to tweak it about 15,000 different times to make sure that it works for the position we're applying for. Well, I think that there is some truth to that. I think we need to take a step back and remember the true meaning of it. So the real purpose of a resume is just to give a snapshot of your experience. Where a lot of people go wrong in your resume, and this might be you if you're listening, so there is no shame in this if you've done this. You've never been taught, most likely. Unfortunately, most colleges don't equip their students as best as possible so that whenever they leave college, if that's been your case, to go into the workforce, we're never really taught how to find a job, which is a totally different set of things that I could have a complete episode on, which frustrates me. But the real purpose of a resume is to give a snapshot of your experience. You are not supposed to have everything you've ever done in your career back to when you were a babysitter, right? And I think a lot of us have that mentality that we need to show all the different things on our resume to make someone want to hire us. Here's the reality of the matter. A recruiter will look at your resume for 6 seconds. Do you think that they're going to read back to that you're a babysitter? No, they want to know what's the main idea of your resume. What is going to make you the right person for this job that's going to make me want to bring you in here and interview with our hiring manager? So remember, it is a snapshot of your experience. It is not your entire career. That is for a different conversation. LinkedIn is more suited for that, which there will be a different episode on how to utilize LinkedIn better. But the second thing is it's a marketing tool. So your resume is not just something you need to have. It's something you need to have to market yourself. What you have to think about is when you're in the job search process, you have a service that you're offering. Whatever skill set it is that you have, that is a service that you are marketing to a company that will find that valuable. So your resume should reflect that. It should reflect the messaging and the branding and the tools that you have to offer to a company so that they will be compelled. So a resume is just a marketing tool. It is not the end all be all. It is definitely not what lands you the job. It is what enters you into an opportunity to talk to someone, because really at the end of the day, what lands you the job is the interview. It's the interpersonal communication that you have. And ultimately, a resume is designed to help you get that interview and get that opportunity to speak in front of somebody. So remember, it is not the end all be all. It is not the thing that you should be spending the most of your time on. It is a tool in your toolkit along with LinkedIn, along with networking, along with applying online, along with your cover letter, along with all of these different facets. It's just a part of the toolkit to help you get in the door somewhere. So I want to remind you of that, because I think a lot of people focus way too much of their time on their resume when really they need to be spending the majority of their time marketing themselves through networking, which we can talk about as well. So I'm going to give you the 3 main ideas that your resume must include to help you land your dream job. I want you to get out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. I prefer a pen. I prefer moleskins as well. If they would like to sponsor me, I fully take that and will receive that. But there are 3 things that your resume must include. So I want you to write these down. First things first, everybody can agree that a clean format is much prettier to look at as a recruiter than something that's really jumbled, that's just black and white, that just provides, it's just a mess. So we want a clean format is the first thing. The second thing is you want to showcase what your key results are. What are the key accomplishments, that you have produced in your job thus far? So we want to focus on the results and accomplishments, not just, hey, I've done a bunch of tasks, hire me. You want someone with this skill set based off of your job description. No, it's more about what's the results that you've produced. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into exactly what that means. And the third thing that your resume must include is it must be semi-customizable. So that is where the tweaking comes into play. And I can talk a little bit about how much tweaking needs to happen between resume to resume or job to job. So we can dive a little bit in there. So again, the 3 things: clean format, key results, and semi-customizable. So let's talk about clean format. So what does a bad format look like? And I'll provide some examples in the show notes of where you can find examples to what is a bad resume. So if this is you, feel no shame again if you have done this. So a bad format is something where it's just a ton of words packed onto a page. It is stuffed to the brim where you can barely even read it because it's just Times New Roman font and it's all black and white and there's maybe some subsections, but it's kind of all fluid together. That is really painful for somebody to read. It's painful for you to read, I'm sure. If it's painful for you to read, it's going to be painful for the recruiter to read, and that is just something we do not want. A bad format also is something that has a resume that's more than 2 pages. Generally speaking, I prefer resumes to be 1 page. The reason why is because if we go back to the main idea of what a resume is designed to help market yourself. You need clean messaging. You need to get to the point, get to the main idea really fast. Again, it is not your whole life history. It is the main ideas that's most relevant to the positions that you're applying for. So the more succinct you can be, the better. So bad format is anything that's above 2 pages. When you're an executive, that's a little bit more relevant to have 2 pages, especially if you have a ton of experience that's going to be really relevant to the employer that you're looking for. And they usually spend a lot more time recruiters spend a lot more time on looking and reading through executive resumes versus if you're like a new grad. If you're a new grad, there is absolutely no reason to have a 2-page resume. You got to format that better, buddy. So just make sure that you are making sure that there is, in terms of a bad format, you don't want to make it more than 2 pages. You don't want to have everything jam-packed in there. And you want to make sure that there are subdivisions to make sure that it is aesthetically pleasing as well. So again, there are some examples that we're going to put in the show notes of what not to do. Now, here's some examples of what you need to do. So there are a couple of resume I provide resume writing services for my clients, but also along with that, there are amazing templates out there if you want to do it yourself. There is one site, it's on Etsy. It's called Get Landed. She is my favorite resume designer. She does amazing work. I actually use a lot of her templates for my clients just because I found no other template does what hers do. It's in Word, so it's very easy to edit. So Get Landed on Etsy, you can buy it, or you can buy it on her site. We'll have it in the show notes. But what I love about her formats that just make it just so easy to read. It's designed, but it's not designed in such a way that you can't edit it, which often happens with some resume designers, is they'll design you this really beautiful resume, but you can't really customize it later on. And so that can be really frustrating for you as a candidate. So you want to be able to edit it should you need to, because again, we want to make sure it's semi-customizable. So a clean format looks like a really bold header that says your name and says what you're about. You want to showcase like, who are you? You want to have your experience really clear and out there, and you want to have an opportunity to showcase your expertise. Clean formats have divisions. They have it's easy for you to kind of read it. So we'll provide some examples of some of her resumes that I love the best. But again, Get Landed is the best opportunity. They're about $15 or so per template. So well worth the investment. That is cheap and well worth the investment for a really wonderfully designed resume that's going to put you as a level up from the competition, which is really what we want. So again, clean format, just make sure that it provides different segments throughout the resume and that it looks beautifully designed and it's something that's editable for you. Hey guys, just wanted to pop in here really quick in the middle of this episode. If you are feeling like this is something that you need to focus on in 2019, if resume writing is something you've struggled with in the past, I have the perfect free resource for you. So all you need to do is go over to www.geneviviano.com/resources, where you're going to find a freebie just for you on all about resume writing. So it's called Resume Writing 101, and it's going to walk you through step-by-step what we talked about in this episode. So if you didn't take notes, this is the perfect opportunity for you to download that free resource. Again, www.geneviviano.com/resources. All right, back to the episode. All right, let's talk about key results, the second portion of what makes a really great resume. So this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They think to themselves, I don't know what my key results are. I have no idea what I've done in my career that's going to be valuable to an employer. So here's what I want you to think about. Here are some key questions that I want you to think about and answer for yourself. 1, what did your manager positively bring up in your performance review? Maybe it was they were proud of a specific project you worked on. Maybe it was your sales numbers. Maybe it was the way you managed a team. What about you has made you unique that your manager has positively talked about? All right, another question you can answer is, what big project did you work on that affected and impacted multiple departments? So maybe you're an accountant and there's a specific program that you were working in, or maybe there was a specific client that you were working on. Whatever that looks like, what big project did you work on that you spent the majority of your time on, affected and impacted other departments? Oftentimes when we take a step back from our job, we get kind of lost in the day-to-day. But if we take a step back from our job and think about it from a global perspective, if we ask ourselves, how does this role and function fit into the overall structure of the organization? If this job didn't exist, what would be wrong? And so as soon as you can think about what were the things that could go wrong in the business without you being there, it starts to help you see, 1, how valuable you are, which is obviously wonderful to hear. And the second thing, it starts to help unpack what are some of the ways in which you have been able to impact the organization as a whole. So that's a second question you can ask yourself. Third question is, did you mentor or train a team? What about leading a team? How many people did you lead? Did you lead anyone from who was underperforming to performing? Those types of things are really valuable to companies that are looking for leadership roles. So anybody who wants to get promoted, often there comes some managing of people. That is a totally different skill set than whatever you are doing in the function of your job. So leading a team is a totally different skill set than maybe doing accounting. I'm using the accounting example. And so if you're able to quantify and showcase how you've been able to bring value to your team, maybe you created a culture that was much more collaborative. How did you do that? That's the kind of stuff that people want to see on resumes, because that's what they find valuable, because they know that's going to impact their company and their team for long success. All right, and the last piece is, how are you evaluated, and did you exceed those expectations? Oftentimes in companies, especially if you work for a bigger corporation, and even if you don't, there's good managers will give clear expectations about what you are expected to do. So I'll give a perfect example, sales, because it's very easy. If you're in sales, you have a quota. You have a certain amount of revenue that you need to make every year or every month, whatever that looks like for you. Did you exceed that? Did you not exceed that? And why? And so being able to quantify the way you are a good return on investment is highly valuable to future employers, because they want to know, is this person going to provide value to our company as well? Are they going to be a good return on investment for us? And is it somebody that we could see actually working on our team? So anytime you can quantify anything you've done, whether it's growth or efficiency or the way you cut down costs, I always tell people that at the end of the day, the way you're going to provide value to a company is in three ways. You're either going to save them money, you're going to make them money, or you're going to make someone's life easier. It's one of those three things. So as you think about your own career, wherever you're at, you could be, working in a blue collar job, or you could be working in a senior level executive job. And that same thing holds true. Are you making someone money? Are you saving them money? Or are you making someone's life easier? And sometimes it's a combination of all those things. So if you make sure that your resume is showcasing those specific key results, that is going to make you a much better candidate than somebody that just dumps a bunch of the tasks that they do on a day-to-day basis. You want to make sure you're showcasing results, not just tasks. The last piece of the puzzle is making sure that it is semi-customizable. So what I want you to do, and this feels like a very tedious process, but we often kind of just look at a job description and we glaze over it and go down to the very bottom and see, what are the requirements? Do I need to have a master's degree? What about 5 to 10 years experience? Oh my goodness, I don't have any of that experience. They're never going to hire me. What I want you to do is first take a deep breath, chill. And the second thing I want you to do is actually read the top of the job description, where it talks about the company, the culture, the mission, and the goals. That is going to give you a much better insight as to what the employer actually is looking for, and if you're able to fill that void. So I tell people, read the job description 25 times. That's a little excessive. You could read it about 5 times through, and I would even print it out. Yes, printers still exist, so I'd print it out and use it as a study guide. And before you even pull out your resume, I want you to think about, how does this job fit into the overall structure of the organization? Again, what type of return on investment are they expecting to receive out of me? How will I be evaluated if I took this job on? And what types of goals do they need to have accomplished by me being in this role, should I be able to get this opportunity? So reading that job description, taking that 30,000-foot view, helps you actually reframe your resume into something that's way more valuable to yourself, makes you feel more confident about your storyline, but also is way more valuable and helpful to an employer or a recruiter. So again, read the job description 5 times, and then I want you to write down the main idea of it. What is the main idea? And then also scan it for keywords. What are some things that you're seeing pop up? Maybe you have a couple of different job descriptions that you're looking at and you think to yourself, I'm going to go through this, read them all a couple of times, see what themes keep on popping up to me, and start writing them down. Those keywords are what you're going to want to pepper throughout your resume. Now, I'm not a huge fan of people who just use buzzwords throughout their entire resume. That doesn't make sense. You want to make sure that you're using keywords that you're seeing throughout job descriptions so that it populates in the applicant tracking systems. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have a resume that, one, makes sense and reads well, but also showcases your key accomplishments. So if you're doing that, it should also have the keywords in there just by nature of you doing it correctly. And then finally, tweakable customization. So this is where the layout really comes into play as well. So again, if you use the Get Landed resumes, her resumes are actually very easily customizable. Your experience should generally stay the same. Your experience is your experience is your experience. You can tweak certain things within there, highlight certain projects, take certain projects away if you feel so compelled and if the job description calls for it. But really where I see the main way that people are able to semi-customize their resume is in the skills section. So that's where the buzzwords and the keywords really come into play, and you can highlight specific keywords very easily. It should take you about 5 minutes to tweak your resume. You should not be spending 2 hours on your resume every single time unless you are applying to, let's say, a finance position and a fashion position. Those are totally different realms, and so you should have 2 separate resumes. But if you're applying for jobs that are similar in nature and have similar goals and end goals, it should generally be the same in terms of the experience portion, where you can customize as the header, the skills section, the interests, maybe even your professional profile that you put at the top if you so desire to do that. That's where you can do the tweaking. And again, it should take no more than 5 to 10 minutes. Anything more than that, you are doing too much work, you're spending too much time on it, and you need to put it down and start networking with somebody instead, because that's going to be a way better use of your time. So again, customizable, read this description 5 times, write down the main ideas, write down the keywords, and then make sure that you are splattering that throughout the resume. All right. I love that we kind of covered all this bits of information. I like to be really efficient in that. I'm Italian, I talk fast, so there you go. But what I really want to talk about in these last couple of minutes is not necessarily how to craft your resume, but how to use your resume. So what a lot of people will do is they'll craft their resume and then they will go onto the job board and apply to about 1,000 positions, hoping something sticks to the wall. I have a news flash for you. 70% of jobs are right around there. 70% of jobs are actually filled through referral. So if you are not referring, if you're not being referred, then you're going to be at a disadvantage. Actually, most of my clients get their jobs through networking, whether it's cold outreach or networking with somebody they know or networking with like a third degree connection. That's actually how most people get their jobs. It's not through just applying online. I've actually never gotten a job myself from applying online. I only got a job from networking with people. Perfect example. So when I was applying to go to the Muse, I was working at the New York Stock Exchange, and I applied online for a sales position. I had no sales experience. My resume, as much as I tried to tweak it, was never going to read, she's a salesperson. And so for a big career shifter, I was like, well, forget this. I know that I can do this job. I'm confident in my skills and capabilities. I'm going to find out a way to network with the right person. So I had told a friend at the New York Stock Exchange that I was interested in the company. And she's like, actually, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows the CEO. Do you want to send me your resume? And so it was not by a first degree connection. I knew no one that was in the startup community, but I just kind of started telling people very strategically, of course, that I was interested in this company, these industries, and it got my resume out there and into the right hands. I went in for that interview because I came through a connection, and I interviewed for the role, something that they probably would have never hired me for if I didn't get the opportunity to get in front of them. Again, your resume just gets you in the door, and in the door is where you really need to sell yourself. So it's not your resume that really is effective, it's how you use it. So networking is going to be a huge portion. A lot of people get really feisty when I start talking about networking. They say, Jenna, I'm not interested in learning how to network because that feels really stressful and it's really awkward and I hate going to happy hours. Here's the deal. Networking at the very core of it is mutually professional relationships developed over time. It's on a one-on-one basis. It's not in a big happy hour setting. I hate that too. What you really want to do is make sure that your resume is getting in the right hands of the right people who really care about it. So networking with people that might be hiring managers, maybe even networking with recruiters, though I have some different opinions about that. Networking with the people that maybe have on the job posting their contact information. That's the type of stuff that's really important. Not just, I'm going to sit here passively and hope something's working behind the scenes. You can do a little bit of that, but that should be about 20% of your time. And about 80% of your time should be spent connecting with real people and real humans. I always say it's bringing the human back into human resources. So hopefully that has been helpful for you. Again, I like to make these short and sweet, these really educational ones, because I want you to actually act on it. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your resume, I want you to look at it, and you want you to think to yourself, does it have a clean format? Are my key results really showcased here? Am I actually proud of the accomplishments that I have? And am I showcasing that on my resume? You should be proud of the things that you've done in your career. And am I customizing it for specific job titles and for specific job functions? If you're doing those 3 things, you're on the right track. And if you're not, now you just have a pathway to get yourself to feel more comfortable when submitting your applications either online or via person, which is what I prefer. So again, hopefully this has been really helpful for you. I have full confidence that if you're able to do these 3 things, you're actually going to have way more traction. If you are getting traction, you start doing these things, let me know. I want to hear about it. Message me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Instagram, connect with me on Facebook. I'm really interested to hear how this has been helping you, if it's been helping you, and what you've learned from the process. So until next time, hopefully I will see you again on another episode of the Your Career Story podcast. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, you know I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.